Hi everyone, and welcome to week 3 of Nexus Fostering's virtual event series. I'm Hayley, the marketing manager, and this is my colleague Annabella, the placements manager. And we're here to tell you all about fostering siblings and fostering teenagers, which, kind of do a bit of myth busting this week. So I'm just going to start the presentation. So last week we ended with how the fostering process and the agency decision maker making the final approval on whether you become a foster carer or not. So Annabella is going to talk you through then the procedure after that. So over to you, Annabella.
Thank you. So when a care is approved, obviously we in the placements team are informed of that. And we contact the carer and just have a chat with them just to get a little bit more information about what children we can consider them for. So some of the things we will talk to them about will be where they live. So we've got an idea of the children being referred and the carers we've got, the carers location that we've got. Who's in the support network, whether they work, and if they work, what's their sort of employment commitments, so we can consider if there's any school run needs. We will speak to them about whether they want to be considered out of hours. Sometimes we get referrals out of hours, so can we call them, at 8 o'clock in the evening? If they've got any pets, because we need to, any children that are referred to us, some, might have allergies or might not be suitable to be placed with pets. So we'll find out if they've got any pets. Who else lives in the house? So if there's any birth children, what the ages of the birth children are, or any other adults, just again for us to consider the children that are referred to us, whether they drive. So that's a really important one because children in care will obviously need be taken to school if they're school age, and there'll be usually be contact with birth family, so we can get a sense of whether the carer is able to do that. If there's any particular interest that the carers have, sometimes we get children and they're particularly into horses or cars or anything like that, so that can be really helpful. And anything else that might be relevant, so their religion, their ethnicity, and anything else that's specific to that carer. So it's just a chat, just to get to know a little bit about them. And then when we're reading the referrals, we can start thinking about each of the carers we've got who is ready to consider a child.
And I think it's really important as well because children from all ethnicities and race and genders are coming into care. And so having a cultural match especially is really important, isn't it?
Yes, so yeah, that's like an ideal situation, particularly for child's coming from home and is used to living a certain ways, maybe used to certain foods. It's a much better transition for the young person to be able to go into a home where those things are similar. So yeah, that's always really helpful. So we do try and look out for that as well. So, and then, as like I said, like anything else that's relevant to that particular carer, if they've got any particular interests, any particular, sometimes it can be about where they live. Do they live in a rural area? Do they live in a city? And what each of those things offer, because like you say, every child is so different and every referral we get is so different. So it's kind of it's a reflection of, we need to get lots of different carers because it's a reflection of the children that are referred to us.
Definitely. So talk to us a bit about the referral process itself. What does that look like?
So in the team, we have 5 people who read referrals from the local authorities. They usually come in via email, and the detail on the child can be a few lines or it can be pages. It really depends on the situation of that, the reason that child is being referred. So we will have a read of it, and then we have a list of all our carers who are vacant. So we'll start reading through reading through about the child, and then looking at what we've got about each carer and seeing if there's a potential there. So for example, if there's a child that's referred to us and we happen to have a carer who lives within a few miles of their school, that might be a good starting position to start conversations about whether this could be a child that the carer can help. But it could be anything. It could be if, it's more important that that child has a cultural and religious match, but school move can happen. So we will read the referral, identify some potential carers, hopefully, who might be able to consider the child, and then we will speak to the carer alongside their supervising social worker. And we also have a matching assurance manager that gets involved in that. And at that point, it's very much exploring, you know, is this right? Do you think you can help this child? These are the needs of the child. Have you got any questions? So we will go back to the local authority if there's further information we want to know about the child. And it's very collaborative in the sense of, do we think we can meet the needs? Let's get the views of the carer, let's get the views of the SSW. And then if we get to a point where we feel we can help, then we will make a formal offer to the local authority. And then the local authority will review their offers and determine which carer is most suitable for that young person.
How many referrals do you think Nexus Fostering receives in a day or in a month? How is it monitored?
So we receive roughly 2,500 a month, which is far more than we have carers available for. So it does change throughout the year. So we do see an increase in referrals just around about this time of year, so June, July. And that can be, or part of the reason for that is because if children are due to move to, you know, if there's a need for them to move on to a different home, then it's a good time. If it can be planned, it's a good time to do it because we're coming up to the end of the academic year. So if it can be planned in, then it's a nice transition. So this is we do see an increase around this time by about 500 a month more. But on average, it's about 2,000, 2,500. So it's a lot. So there's a lot of children referred to us and not enough carers on our list that are available, unfortunately.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's awful. So this is our foster carer, Tim. So he's just going to talk to you a little bit about, from a foster carer's point of view, what a referral looks like.
Well, that's really interesting. So once you receive a referral through, the brilliant thing is you get lots of information. In our previous agency, you wouldn't even get a name and you wouldn't necessarily know much about the child at all. With Nexus, you get lots of information and there are lots of conversations back and forth. So it's a very much a to and fro process in terms of not only the referral, there might be questions you've got, and the placements team will then take those questions back to the local authority. And there's this dialogue that goes back and forth. And it's really difficult because you read these children's stories and you want them all because you know they're all in very different situations. So we've had a young lady with us who was on what they call a Section 20, where the parents have said, we can't parent this child anymore. We want the local authority to do it. And we've had children that have been subject of a care order where the parents haven't said that, but the court has decided the parents haven't got the capacity. So it's very different sorts of referrals, but that dialogue back and forth is really, really useful to be able to, for you to look at, are you the best person to meet this child's needs?
And I think he touches on something really important there because we speak to people that, you know, they do want to take them all. And they feel bad about saying no. What advice would you give to, they can't take in 20 children, in a scenario. So how would they deal with that scenario?
I think it's, you want to set everybody up for success. So you want good outcomes for the young person and the carers. So it's finding finding the matches that the carer and the as a collaborative team we feel can meet the needs of that child, and it is hard. I mean, we find it hard in the placements team as well because there are so many referrals that we receive that we just read and go, we haven't got a carer that can help. So it is tough, and I don't think there's an easy answer to how to deal with that. It's the reality, unfortunately. But it's important that we do find the child that is right for that carer, and also that the carer finds the child that's right for them and their home, so that it's got the best chance of success, and that it can meet the needs of the young person. What Tim was saying in terms of answering, asking lots of questions and things. So we're really passionate about that. We really want to us and our carers to know as much about the young person as is possible. And that does happen daily. We speak to the local authorities, we've got relationships with them, and we'll ask further questions about the children. The only time it can look a little bit different is if it's an emergency. So if it's a referral for a same day, and the children are maybe coming from home because they're at immediate risk, so there's potentially very little information on those children, because it might be their first time into care. So there are situations where we might not be able to find out as much information because of the circumstance that child's being referred to us. So as I say, if it's same day emergency referral, or it's their first time into care, it just makes it a little bit harder to have the detail around that child or children.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to say that your team and their supervising social worker are with them at all times to help them make those decisions, and to have those discussions with.
Yeah, and it's, as I say, it's very collaborative. So it's very much a conversation. This is the young person or the child. This is what we know about them. Is there anything else you want to know? What do you think? And then their assigned supervising social worker, there'll be an ongoing relationship that carer will have with the SSW. You know, it'll be an SSW that visits them regularly. So they'll know a lot about them in terms of their home environment and what would be suitable. So yes, it's very collaborative, and it's got to feel right for everyone.
Brilliant. So this is so we'll kind of move on to our types of fostering. So many people might not know that there are such a variety of types of fostering. So we're going to be covering short-term and long-term in this, alongside siblings and teenagers. So Annabella, tell us a bit about short-term fostering.
So the majority of the referrals we receive are for short-term fostering. Most children in care are under a short-term fostering arrangement, and short-term can mean a day, it can mean months, it can mean years. Some children are on short-term fostering arrangements for years, and the reason children will come into care will be because of the circumstances that they sort of find themselves in. So it could be because their caregiver's unwell, and there's nobody else suitable to care for them. There might be care proceedings ongoing to work out where's best for that child, who's best to care for that child. They might be experiencing abuse and neglect. So whilst a plan is being made about their longer term care, whether they'll be going back home or something else, then the children will remain in short-term fostering. And during that time, usually they'll have contact with their birth family. So they'll have that regularly, which the foster carers would transport them to. And with short-term fostering, it can end in, once it does end, and whether that's after a day or months or years, they might return home, or they may end up going into long-term fostering, or even adoption. It just depends on what's decided in terms of the outcome and what's best for that child.
Brilliant. So that leads us on to long-term fostering then.
Yes, so long-term fostering is when a child remains with a carer on a long-term basis. So it's an assigned carer. For that to happen, there's normally an assessment that happens on that carer to ensure that the carer can maintain the needs, meet the needs of the child now, but also in the future. With long-term fostering, the carer, the young person remains the responsibility of the local authority, and the carer will continue to receive a fostering allowance as well. And long-term fostering, children are placed, sometimes are under long-term fostering arrangements because it's been determined that they can't return home. And obviously there could be various reasons for that. In some situations, they will still have some contact with their birth family. It just depends on the individual circumstances and what's been agreed as most suitable for that child.
And can they transfer over to long-term fostering at any age?
Yes. It's less like, yes, I mean, they can. It just depends on the care proceedings and what's going on in terms of what's being decided as to whether they're able to return home or whether they go into adoption. So that it will just completely depend on that individual circumstance. It tends to be that it's not so common for young children, very young children, to be on long-term fostering arrangements, because usually there's a period of time where a plan has to be made, and that can take quite some time. But yeah, as I say, so it can be older children rather than the very young ones. But it just depends on the individual circumstances of that young pet, those children.
So I think this is a really staggering statistics for siblings. So an estimated 20,000 children are separated from a sibling when placed in foster care. And that's, we know that it's for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons being that carers can't offer the space for sibling groups. So tell us a bit about fostering siblings.
Yeah, so this is a really big challenge at the moment, because we do get lots of referrals for siblings, but of course we've got to have the carers that have the space for siblings, and siblings can be 2 children. You know, it's not uncommon to see 4 or 5. So if it's a sibling group of 2 and they're the same gender, then you know, you might be able to match them with a carer that has a reasonable large 1-bedroom. But otherwise you are looking for a carer that's got a minimum of 2 bedrooms. And that's a challenge to find and to have. And often carers that do have sort of more than 2 bedrooms and can consider sibling groups, they're often matched quite, you know, certainly more quicker, because there's more of a need for them. It does happen, unfortunately, where we have situations where we've received referrals for siblings and we just don't have an option to offer to the local authority to keep them together. So what we'll do, which is far from ideal, but it's the only sort of the next best option we have, is we're sort of forced to go to look at 1 or 2 different carers that we've got vacant, who maybe live next to quite close to each other. And then we try and maintain the sibling relationship that way, because the carers will live quite close together. But of course, that means that the children aren't living together. So unfortunately, it does happen, but it's best that it doesn't where it's possible.
Why is it important that they do keep together? What is it that they can bring to each other for keeping together? So
when children are going into a completely new home and they don't know, you know, they don't know anything about the family, they may be coming from home, which is all they know, having their sibling with them gives them a sense of some sort of security, because they've got each other. It's also replicating what they've been used to already. And it had, you know, some research has shown that children who remain together, siblings who remain together, can have better outcomes in their placement. So there's lots of, apart from the obvious that they're siblings, there's lots of other benefits as well. So yes, it's a challenge, and we do need more carers who have a minimum of 2 bedrooms and can take siblings. And siblings can be anything. It can be a newborn baby with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. It could be 3 children or 2 children who are between the ages of 10 and 15, or a real mixture. So the age gap of the siblings can vary massively.
And I think it's also, you know, the older sibling, you know, from what, maybe 5 to 8 or something, the older sibling sometimes in their home takes on a bit of a responsibility, don't they? They take on that kind of looking after and nurturing of the younger sibling. And they don't want that to stop, do they? They don't know how to live or develop on their own. They kind of have that natural instinct of wanting to protect and look after their sibling. So, you know, you wouldn't want to separate them in for that instance, would you?
No, and I think that's quite hard, because it's particularly if they've taken on almost like a caring role for their younger sibling, that's quite an adjustment if they're to be separated. And equally, when they are, you know, fostered together within one home, it's them sort of getting used to the fact that they don't have to be that full, you know, they don't have to be the main caregiver, that actually there's somebody else to do that and help with that, and they can focus on being a child.
You can give them their childhood back, can't you?
Yeah.
They need to be a child. A lot of these children coming into care don't have that at the moment.
Yeah.
The teenagers. So teenagers is a big thing. Teenagers get a very stereotypical image about why they're in care. A lot of people think they're in care because they're being a naughty teenager, and that's just not the case. So tell us a bit about fostering teenagers.
So fostering teenagers it's pretty much exactly how you've started that. Every teenager is different, and it's not, not every teenager that's referred to us has some of the sort of stereotypical needs that some people might think of when they think about fostering a teenager. Often they've experienced exactly the same as what a younger child might have experienced in terms of abuse or neglect. And they are young, older children, young adults who need to be looked after, much like any other, they'll have similar anxieties and worries like any other teenager living at home. And we do have carers who specifically want to foster teenagers, and that they say that they enjoy developing that teenagers' kind of independent skills. So it's about preparing them for adulthood and preparing them for independence. So helping them with how to manage their money, cooking, washing, all the things that all of us need, to learn when we're sort of at that age to prepare us for independence. Most children in care are over 10 years old. So I think it's 64%. So there is much more of a need for foster carers that will consider older children. It works quite well with carers who maybe have part-time jobs, because so long as the young person's, it's safe to do so, they might be able to get themselves to school. And then, if the carer's got a part-time job, they'll be back home by the time school finishes. So it works quite well because they've got more independent skill. They're just more independent than a 2-year-old. So it can work quite well for some people in terms of what they feel they can offer and help with.
It's just a hard period of their life, isn't it? It's just they just need that strong support system behind them. What happens, so with regards if they're in care kind of when they're turning 16, 17, what happens at that stage of their life?
So once they reach 16, 17, there'll be lots of conversations around preparing them for independence and what that will look like. There is a staying put scheme that allows children to stay with their carer until they're 21, but it's not a fostering arrangement, so it looks slightly different. But we do have carers that have had, children from whether it be 5, 10 or 13 or even 14, 15, and then when they reach 18, they do stay with our carers under staying put if that's deemed suitable for everyone. Otherwise they may go into their own sort of independent accommodation that the local authority will be involved in.
And I think just going back to the support network, we have to remember a lot of the children of that age might not present behaviours of their actual age. So it might be that they're younger and they need that extra additional support leading up into independent living, aren't they?
Yeah, and we see that across the board with lots of children in care might be a certain age, but they actually can present quite a lot younger. And that can be for lots of reasons in terms of their experiences. So you might, what might be expected of that 15, 16-year-old, they might actually be developmentally presenting much younger. So even more so, you're almost caring for, supporting a child who's 16 or 15, but they're sort of presenting more as a 13, 14-year-old. So that obviously can provide can come with additional challenges. But it just depends. Every young person is different, and every referral we get for teenagers looks different. So it really just depends on that young person and whether it's the needs of that young person can, we have a carer who can help them, basically.
Definitely. And I think there's so many different aspects of teenage, for education with their GCSEs. We've got Andy, our head of education, who is there to help you with regards to schooling, and he's doing a session in week 7. They're going through puberty. They've been through so much change and maybe a couple of placements or red families before they've got to this one. And, it could be that they might still be having contact with their family, might not. So, they're thinking so much more than what a younger child would. And so I think they need that extra support, don't they?
Yeah, and there's lots that Nexus offer as well to support with that. So, you know, there's lots of training around available to carers that might help with whatever, you know, any of the challenges that the young people might have, even things like internet safety, you know, that applies to every teenager. You know, there's lots of resources within Nexus to help support carers for all children, but, you know, some of the things that come specifically around fostering teenagers as well. So, you know, you're not sort of doing it alone. There's help and support along the way.
Absolutely. So we're just going to finish off with Chris. So Chris was our very first foster carer. So she's been with us for 22 years. And I think it's important for, well, obviously she'll tell you about how to prepare for a child coming to your home. So they obviously could come from a variety of circumstances. So they might have already been to a few different families. It might be that they've just come straight from their family. So all of their emotions and what they're thinking, you know, they're all going to be very different. So this is a bit of advice from Chris.
I always prepare for a child arriving at my home by talking to my family about our latest new arrival, preparing their room as well, and making sure that I've got age appropriate things in the house, and make sure that their bedroom is warm and welcome. Could be a teddy bear. If it's an older person, as in a teenager, it can be a teddy bear hot water bottle, a fluffy throw, a set of towels, different things for different children. Always offer warmth, always greet them with a smile, and something to eat and drink. Food is love.
I think, you know, they're going to be so overwhelmed, aren't they, when they come? They don't know you. It's going to be different smells. There's going to be different noises. Their friends might not be nearby. Their school might not be nearby. It's going to be, you know, they're not expecting PlayStations and, you know, a wardrobe full of clothes and all these things. It's just they're wanting comfort and a listening ear and routine. They want someone to, you know, make sure that they've got, you know, food in front of them, that they can have a clean shower to make themselves clean, you know, all those little things. I think sometimes people think that it's, you know, the impact of it is so big, but actually it's the little things every day that these children want, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always try and think, if it was me and I was going into a house and I didn't know much about the carer, we do provide to the local authority a little A4 sheet with information about the carer, a few pictures of what the house looks like in the bedroom. So the young person would hopefully have looked at that. They've got a little idea, but that's just working on some pictures and a little bit of a description. But I often think, how would I feel if I was walking into what is a stranger's home? What are they going to be like? How are they going to talk to me? What's the room going to look like? What's the house going to look like? What's the area going to look like? So they're quite that they I think they're things that's very easy to forget about in the whole kind of picture of having a young person coming into your home. But like you say, they're those little things that are actually at that initial stage of really big things.
Absolutely. So use the Q&A chat function if you'd like to ask us a question. We've had a couple in. So what are the majority of referrals that we get from the local authority?
So sibling groups is a big one, and parent and child we get a lot of referrals for that, and children who need therapeutic care, which I think is going to be spoken about at another session, isn't it? But children that need some therapeutic care as part of their fostering, they're the three big main ones.
I think you froze then, so just repeat that, sorry.
So I'll just start from the beginning because I don't know what bit was cut off. So the three big ones that we tend to receive most referrals for are sibling groups, parent and child, and children who need some therapeutic care alongside the fostering arrangement.
Brilliant. And how do you deal with when a child leaves a placement? How are you expected to deal with it? What support is there available for someone leaving a home?
So the carer will obviously have an ongoing relationship with the SSW. So the SSW will be there to support the carer with that. Hopefully, in most scenarios, the young person will be leaving in a planned way. So there'll be time to prepare for that, not just for the carer, but also for the child. And the SSW, you know, there's no hard and fast rule about how it should be done. It's very individual in terms of how it is for the carer, how they're feeling, and what the next steps look like will just depend on those individual circumstances.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Annabella. Thank you for joining us, everybody. If there's no other questions, then we can leave it there. So next week, week 4, is parent and child. So we've got a half-an-hour session on parent and child fostering. It's an unknown type of fostering, but as Annabella said, the referrals coming through for it are part of the majority of the referrals. So yes, so join us next week and we can talk you through that. Nice to see you all. Thanks, Annabella.
Thank you.